Hello people, it's the 23rd of June today. This is question time from Plymouth that was on last night. So we'll jump on to the first lively audience question tonight.
First question tonight, which comes from Daniel Winston, please. Daniel Winston.
Given that major policies from the Conservative manifesto were missing from the Queen's speech, is it time for Theresa May to finally admit that she does not have a mandate to govern?
This question, I think it isn't for Theresa May to say that. I think it's more towards the Tory supporters to start saying that. I don't think. Like I said, I don't think no other political party, no one who didn't vote Tory can look up and say anything, because we didn't vote for that manifesto. As long as the Tory supporters has got their heads in the sand and they're happy for their party the party manifesto to be ripped apart, so they don't know what they're voting for now, I don't see how any of us can kick off about it. That's like a Tory internal issue, and the fact that a lot of their supporters just got their heads in the sand and they're happy to let the Tory parties do what they like to them. Like I said, from my point of view, I actually do get engaged in learning what things are. I don't see something and think, oh, I don't want to know how that worked. No, I like to know the details. The fact that so many people on Facebook use Tory supporters, they just don't seem to get it. Even if I explains it, they just think that I'm attacking their party, so they're going to defend it no matter what is said. Even if it makes logical sense, they just turn around and calls me a name, or says rubbish. They don't explain why, because they can't explain why, because they've got their heads in the sand and they're just not interested in politics. They're not interested in learning about the very thing that governs their lives in a passive way, but it still governs their life. They pay tax. That tax goes to the party in power, and then they choose what they do with it. Think about it. Think about your vote. Don't just vote on family lines, or really think about your vote. Read. It's not like you've got to go somewhere to read nowadays. Most people got access to the internet. If you haven't, you could go to a local library that gives you 2 hours and you can look up anything you want. But yeah, that's the Tory supporters to determine that, if they're still happy having their manifesto that they voted for ripped apart. And by the sound of it, I think most of them are. So yeah, that's what that is, isn't it? I'll move on to the next issue now.
You're our neighbours, our friends. The threat of deportation that many of them see is absolutely abhorrent.
But hang on a second. But Theresa May has apparently today guaranteed the rights.
Yes.
Though, of course, what that guarantee consists of, we don't know, but has guaranteed the rights of EU citizens. Correct, Janet Blue.
Right, this isn't really a question. This is something that really annoys me, because as much as I hate the Tory party, this wasn't a Tory party issue. This was something that all the political parties was using to bash the Tory party. But this is a link between freedom of movement and the way in which the government can't stop that freedom of movement. So let's say, for example, last year after the vote, say 3 months after the vote, the Tory party come out and they guaranteed all EU people coming here would be secure in staying here. What we would have got is a lot of Europeans coming here straight away to get the UK visa on the UK exiting. So a lot of EU nationals, there wouldn't have been no rules, nothing could have stopped them from coming here and staying here just to get the UK visa passport. So that was never an issue to me. When I hear that, I just thought that is political lying. All the other parties are lying to punish the Tory party. I'm not going to lie, I did enjoy seeing that, because the Tory party's got to do what's best for the interest of the country. And the way the Tory did do that, I will give them credit for. But they didn't have no choice. They could not come out and say, oh, we guarantee all EU people in this country they could stay after Brexit, because it would have been an influx of all over the EU. They would have been all rushing here to get that right to be able to stay here if they choose to. So I totally understand why the Tory party didn't secure it beginning, and I truly believe Labour and some of the other parties knew that, because it's part of the fundamentals of the freedom of movement. So yeah, I am doing something unusual, and I am kind of standing up for the way that the Tory party dealt with that issue. It was out of their hands. It would have been out of any political party's hands on how they could have handled that. Because if they would have come out and said they could all stay, we would have got an influx of EU citizens coming here to get that right to stay in the UK, leaving Brexit. So, you know, I totally understand why the Tory party did what they did. And like they just said, it was a non-issue, because now we've having that discussion, it will be cleared up easy, because all the member states would probably say the same as us. Yeah, it's fine. Brits over there could stay over there. EU's here could stay over here. Yeah, it was never gonna be a complex issue. That it's just like give and take on both sides. So no one loses anything on that. If something did break down, the only people that would lose would be the people that's moved to a different area, and that wouldn't be good for global peace, really. It would create more chaos. So I totally understand why the Tory party did it. I did enjoy seeing the Tory party get hammered politically for it, but it was a pointless thing to do, really. I'll move on to the next issue.
1 year on from the EU referendum, are we any wiser on what Brexit really
all right,
means?
You've all been talking.
What Brexit really means, God, Jesus, has a biggie in it. I think the first thing to say, the scale of the EU is massive. The UK's been in it, like the woman said, the UK's been in it for over 43 years. That means we've integrated so many of our systems, specifically in trade and market, that it's going to be a nightmare getting out of it. And the one thing I hated about the EU referendum is none of the MPs whatsoever talked about how much it's going to cost to set up a trade department within the UK government. Because that's the one thing people should know by now, that the UK was using the EU Trade Department, which is a massive department. We had a lot of scope within it, and we had trade with 14 other countries outside of the EU. So when people say, oh well, we should trade, in essence we're trading with a lot of other countries, and these countries are wealthy countries, probably the only countries outside the EU that could actually only afford to trade with us. India, Saudi Arabia is a wealthy country. What was the other ones? There was some smaller countries, but they were all held, like Canada, USA, I think Brazil too. It was all a lot of 14 other countries, people. And the other thing that's the problem with the UK's position is, because we use the EU Trade Department, is the EU knows all our financial dealings. Now you ask any business person, would you go into a negotiation with someone that knows all your financial situations and try and get a deal? They'll laugh at you. They'll be like, what are you on about? Yeah. The UK is going into a negotiation And the EU knows exactly every aspect of our trade, what it costs, what we're doing, you know. And I just think, how can you say we're in a powerful position when we're in that position? The EU, because they knew the numbers, they could easily come in and undercut our trade deals to keep those 14 trades outside the EU. They could quite easily negotiate a better deal to keep them within the EU. And the UK wouldn't know what the deal was offered. So we would have to think, well, what kind of deal have they been offered, and we would have to offer them a better deal to try and keep that trade when we leave the EU. So it is chaos, people. No matter which way it goes, it's going to be chaos, because you've got the likes of Nigel Farage that would flare up that far-right feeling a lot of people's feeling at the moment. And we all know what Nigel's like. He's just got that ability to create chaos. And so, you know, it has to be a transitional period over 10 years. There's no way in hell that we're going to be out of it within the next 2 years. That's dreamland. Only the idiots that wants to totally destroy our country wants that, and they believe, a bit like quantitative easing, we don't have to worry about nothing, we could just keep giving billions to the bank. It's that mentality of, well, we could just leave and it doesn't matter. It does matter, because a lot of companies will see it as a very big hurdle to their making money, and if they think they're not going to make money, they will go to the EU or to the US. So we are in a very bad position, and it has to be a transitional period because it's so big. The scale is so big when it comes to the EU, and you know, then we've got to sort out: do we want to be part? Do we still want to be part of the EU arrest warrant? Why would we want to pull ourselves out of that? You know, it means if anyone actually hurts anyone in this country, tries to run back to Europe, we could get them back within a few days once they get caught. Why would we want to give that up? That's got to be negotiated. Then you've got the split up of all the other money that's going to have to be took out for the UK. It's going to be chaos. It is absolutely going to be chaos. And the only winners out of this are going to be the people working on it, getting hundreds of £1,000s a year to work through all the paperwork, because it's going to take years. And I think the transitional period is going to have to be at least 10 years. If you want chaos, and we get what Nigel wants, which is pulling us straight out without caring about anything, the euro will collapse. That'll link on to a domino effect to our currency in the pound. Then after that, probably the dollar would join in not long after, because the dollar's got a lot of interest in both the UK and the euro. So those three currencies are all interlinked. They're all lined up like a domino. If one goes down, they all go down. So I'll move on to the next issue now.
About Brexit, are we anyone?
Lady in the blue at the top right, who made such an interesting point about Brexit getting in the way of other things. What I'd say is this: the reason we voted for independence for Britain is that we wanted a democracy where we make our decisions about how we govern ourselves. We can't govern ourselves until we got Brexit, because democratic decisions can't be made by politicians in Britain until we have Brexit. At the moment, they're made by commissioners and foreign powers.
Okay, now look.
Again, that makes me so angry. That is total BS. You know, the EU essentially only got power over the single market. They govern the rules and regulations over the single market, which governs trade between all member states. What that guy just said was total BS. It was total BS. Do you think the likes of France, Germany, Italy will accept an unelected EU system going into their country and taking control of their politicians? Come on, people, wake up. That was total BS. And that's what makes people angry, because that is just a total lie on it don't matter how you try to twist that. That is a total lie. The people don't get a direct say in the EU. I accept that. When we make our vote, we're making our vote for our own government. That's fine. But then what happens on the EU level is our government is treated like a single person within the EU with 20 other single people. And each one of them gets to have a vote. It's just a higher level of democracy that I understand not everyone's happy with. I accept that. That's fine. You voted to leave, we're leaving. But to try and just keep using that rhetoric, it makes me so angry. And on every single rule, all 27 countries gets a vote. And it's just crap to say that it's all unelectable. They're not they're unelectable. You can twist it that way, but they are elected by the governments of each member state. But like I said, that's irrelevant. And what he said was just, again, rhetoric to build up that hatred to make each people go to their each side. You know, it doesn't help the debate, and it doesn't help where we are now. It's just total BS, that. And ignore it because it's crap. The EU just controls the rules and regulations over the single market to make it a fair trading place for every single country within the single market. And if they feel something is unsafe, say it's an ingredient of food and it's found to be it's found to create cancer, the EU would put regulations, they will propose regulations to block that food across the trade area. And a lot of people hate that, especially America. America's food trade industry, they don't really care about their people because they let them put almost anything in the food. Yeah, go on, put that in, is right. Yeah, but the EU's got a more red tape system to look after people. It isn't to try and stop profit, it's to keep us safe, which is what we want, isn't it? It really does. I'll move on to the next question because I just really get mad at that because it is a lie. I'll move on to the next question.
Daniel Bulmer.
Why won't Jeremy Corbyn accept that he lost the general election?
Won't accept. I think Jeremy Corbyn's a very logical guy and he knows he didn't win. But what he did do was turn around something that everybody was saying wasn't possible. How do you not expect him to be happy about that and gloat about that and put pressure on Theresa May that took this gamble thinking that she would win? But to be honest, she never took it because of that. She took it because of the electoral scam that's going on before the vote. So she was forced to do this election. And now, what was it? I was reading something else. There's something else that's come out now. I can't remember at the top of my head. But there's something else that's come out about the Tories now, and it's it's about the cold calling. I watched it last night on Channel 4 News, and the Tory party was paying a lot of money to get this private company to phone up people and basically cold call them and ask them who they're voting for and all that. And under the electoral system, that is against the rules. You can't do that type of thing. You've got to be open with people, and they weren't. They were phoning up, acting like they're part of, you know, all the media stuff and getting information when essentially they were being paid by the Tory party to push the Tory agenda onto people through the thing. So they cheated again. So, you know, it's a total joke. I think Jeremy do accept the result, like he does with the EU, you know. He was in a party that was pretty much unified around staying in the EU, but yet he stuck to his grounds. And he, you know, you've got to respect the guy for that. And he respects everything that the people say. But at the end of the day, I think even he was probably surprised with how well he done, because the media, from the media, Tory party, even his own MPs, they were all attacking him. That's the only reason why he didn't win. He didn't win because there's part of the population that likes to see a unified party, and the Labour before the election wasn't seen as that because the PLP kept stabbing him in the back. That's why he didn't win the government. If he had a complete party behind him, pushing with him, they would be in power now. So it's a PLP that cost Jeremy the election, not Jeremy himself. Jeremy done an amazing job. But, you know, I think he does accept it, but he's doing what any leader would do in that position and putting pressure on the opponents. So I'll move on to the next question.
One of the things I'm very concerned about is this whole idea about balancing the books and Brexit and who pays the price at the end of it. Because I can see we're leaving problems, we're piling it up for the next generations, because actually the national debt, the Tories have not balanced the books, because our debt has gone from 1 trillion to 1.7 trillion.
But the question was
and
about,
also,
sorry, you're getting off the point.
See, this is the one thing, Brexit and all that I see as secondary to the debt. And whenever anyone on the media starts talking about the debt these days, they're closed down almost immediately. She was closed down about the debt because we can't talk about the debt because it's even worse than 2010. And everything the Tories were saying in 2010 and 2015, it's even worse now. So we can't talk about it. We've got to hide it and pretend it's not there. And just do loads of cuts. I don't care what anyone says. The cuts that we've seen is a direct link to people voting Brexit. Because I've seen plenty of people saying, well, I'm bad off now. In the EU vote, there's a lot of people saying, well, I'm already worse off. I can't be no worse off. I got nothing to lose by voting out. Because the Tories cut things so much that people felt, well, I got nothing to lose, so I'm going to vote out. That's the mentality of what the cuts has done. But she's 100% right when she went on about the debt, and he cut her off because she was probably going to make another logical logical comment based on looking, and how can anyone say the Tory party has got credibility when their main policy in 2010 and 2015 was to pay down the debt? They haven't paid down the debt, and you could keep blaming Labour until the sun goes down. But the Tory party in 2010 and 2015 clearly stated austerity would pay down the debt, and it hasn't. They've totally failed on everything, and the Tory Brexiteer MPs are using that to their advantage and forcing Brexit onto the country, even though it's going to be damaging. They don't care. It's all about one vision for them and getting the UK out. And Gove wants it because he feels his family wealth was took away from him because of the EU. He's not voting for what's best for the EU. He's voting for what's best for his family and what the EU did to his family and what it did to him as a child because he had to go without some toys he wanted. Pathetic. But yeah, she's absolutely right. How can you say credibility when you had a debt of 1 trillion, but now, at the time we were told that the debt would be almost paid off now based on all their forecasts. All the Tory forecasts is junk. None of them was hit. So I don't know how people can still think the Tories got any credibility in economics whatsoever. It's just beyond me. Head in the sand again. I'll move on to the next. Question.
The question was about, and let's take this question from Chris Wilcox, please. Chris Wilcox.
Is austerity responsible for the deaths of the Grenfell residents?
Is austerity responsible for the... Just have your question.
I think definitely the way I would put the blame is probably 50% on the contractors, probably 30% on the council, and then I would put 20% on austerity and, well, the Tory party austerity programme. Because they've been very clever what they've done, haven't they? Let's face it, they've been very clever. Because they said that austerity had to happen, but they didn't take responsibility for where the austerities got to hit. They passed the buck down to local councils. So they put that buffer in between them and the local councils throughout the country. It's a very clever thing. We don't want to take the responsibility. They sold it in such a way that, well, local councils knows what's better for themselves. So it's better they do the cut than main government. It's clever as hell, isn't it, if you think about it. That's so clever. The spin on that was amazing. And, you know, now these councillors in that tower block, I think probably 3 of them is going to face criminal charges. And obviously that company that did it, they're finished. The owner's probably going to get done for manslaughter, because that's what it is. Especially if there's paperwork that states that they paid for fire retardant cladding, and then this company, to make extra money, started buying the cheaper stuff that hasn't got no flame retardant properties. They're screwed. But I think 20% is a fair amount of the blame onto the Tory austerity. And the fact that the Tories has been holding on to a report that was made on the last tower block fire, they also try to take blame for that, because it's just been pushed down the road constantly, and now this has happened, and it's cost the government a lot of money. A lot of people has died, which is disgusting, and now it's just chaos. But I just think it's because the Tory party is too busy internally fighting between each other over Brexit. So all the issues within the country is just going down the pan, because that party is obsessed with fighting internally between each of the groups who wants to leave and who wants to stay. And so yeah, the Tories are a mess. The Tories are a mess, and I truly believe in karma, because since Jeremy Corbyn comes to power, Dave and George loved the fact that they were taking the mickey out of Jeremy Corbyn and the fact that he was getting stabbed in the back, and now karma has turned that right around, and now the Tories are at each other's necks over the Brexit. Karma is a really good thing. I love it. It rebalances everything. I will move on to the next question.
To end with Terry Portman.
If the DUP get an extra £2 billion for Northern Ireland for their 10 MPs to support the government, can Devon and Cornwall expect £4 billion for our 20 MPs to support the government?
To be honest with you, this is a non-question really, because I don't think the Tory party is going to get any type of deal. I think the DUP is asking way too much for their 10 MPs, and I think there's a lot within the Tory party that feels very uncomfortable based on the overall party, because obviously if they do go into some type of coalition with the DUP, or an agreement based programme, whatever you want to call it, it's going to create a lot of tension, because some of those people are so arrogant in their views and how they think a woman should be forced to have a child regardless of the circumstances. Life matters more than anything else. Yeah, the DUP it's just no. They shouldn't even be considered at the head of government, because obviously the UK's got to stay in the middle and try to keep the peace going in that country. So I just think it's a disaster for May to even go down that road. And the only reason she went down that road is because no other political party would touch her. Would touch her after what has happened to the Lib Dems. So you know, she wasn't in no position, and I can't see how this government could last. I give this government maybe till Christmas, maybe till next year at the most, and that's only if all the other parties are kind to the Tory party, which I don't. This is a government that is powerless to do anything really. They're going to be on extreme pressure to start thinking about these £8 billion of cuts, and they're going to have to start trying to water them down because they get support for that. But then you've got to ask, well, how's that going to affect the debt? The debt is going to go up even more at a time when it's already 1.7 trillion. So, yeah, it's chaos. I've never known politics to be like this ever. I know this is a long one, but yeah, I've got a little bit carried away here. I just got one more issue towards the end. It was from the guy at the end. He made a really good point. I just wanted to highlight it. Here we go.
I'm sorry.
There's been quantitative easing, 70 billion in August. That's a magic money tree. Who does it feed? The banks.
Okay.
We can raise money for infrastructure, for what's important. We can also tax those who are paying less tax comparatively to, support the whole of the community.
John, first question tonight, which comes from...
So, like he just said, austerity, look, a lot of people don't, well, not austerity, what am I about? Basically, quantitative easing is the one thing that nobody's really bothers with. It's like, quantitative easing is just the Bank of England making up money and just giving it to the banks in a complex system that makes it so complex that people don't really understand, so they could keep doing it. There's no reason why a system like that can't be transformed, and instead of giving it to a few banks at the top, we give those billions of pounds and we separate it and we give everyone in this country a basic income. I just do not understand humanity and how we make our lives harder. If enough people agreed with the basic income, that they would get money for nothing, and if everyone agreed with that, democracy would accommodate for that and we would get something done. But yet we all choose to fight against it. I don't understand that. It's the mentality of the Conservative Party. They're happy seeing people on the streets with nothing than they are people who've got it's just nah. But quantitative easing is essentially making money up and giving it direct to the banks and keeping it afloat. And the only reason it's working is because pretty much all of Europe is doing it, all of the USA is doing it. I think Japan is doing it a bit of China too. Everyone is doing it pretty much throughout the world to keep their banking system going. Quantitative easing is the only thing that is keeping your savings and your money in your account there. It's nothing else, people. If quantitative easing stopped, your money, your savings will be gone. That's the simple thing of it. Whereas if we just, the banks will manipulate the system. If quantitative easing stopped with the banks will take your money. And there's nothing you can do about it. Check it out if you don't believe me. Right, this is a long one. If you've managed to stay till the end, thanks for watching. Well, listening I suppose you could say, but yeah, this was one of the most lively question times I've come across in some time, I've got to say. I don't really enjoy it when it's like that because it ruins debate. When you get someone so emotional that they get so angry that they just can't control themselves, it ruins the debate and it allows the right to control the debate and make everyone who really cares look like that guy that was kicked out. It's wrong. The people should understand politics and they shouldn't get so angry, because anger ruins the fact that you can think, and the Tory party uses that big time. So I will leave it there. Like I said, if you stayed to the end, thanks for watching, and I hope I didn't say too much that you disagree with. I tries to keep as honest as I can, regardless of if it benefits one party over the other. That's the way I feel. Until next Thursday, people. Ta-da.